Hi, everyone. I'm James Protin. I'd like to give a special thank you to our sponsors for the podcast. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Our guest for episode 42 here at Chico Bocello is, all I can say is you're gonna love her. Maria Allshouse. You know, she is unique in a lot of different ways, but the greatest thing I think about you, my dear friend, since we've met, is that you had the courage to make a major life transformation at the age of 43, when a lot of people who walked your path would have already waved the white flag and given up. So I'm excited to hear about this story, because from what I know of you, and when we did the Denise Scaloni's thing, together, you speak from your heart, you speak with passion and enthusiasm, and that's what we're all about. And I can't wait to hear this story. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. I love it. I love it.
I enjoy inspiring people and encouraging them to take charge of their health, because it's never too late, right? Even if we make the smallest change and we just start from there, it's not about going all out.
Right.
It's about just taking a step back, looking within, and then deciding what's one thing that I can do today just to start to move forward to create that healthier lifestyle in my life.
That's excellent, because, and when well, first of all, let's be very clear. You're not a doctor, you're not a PhD, you're not a medical professional. So what we talk about here today is basically comes from life experience.
Correct.
And so you're a weight management coach, a lifestyle coach, nutrition coach, things like that. But that's not, you have certifications, obviously, but that didn't come from a classroom. That came from real life, right? From your real experience. And I watched your speaker reel, and it punched me in the gut. It's a story, and when I talk about transformation, which is kind of like the core of what the podcast is all about in those types of life journeys. Wow. You've come a long way.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. I would have never imagined 13 years ago that I would be transforming lives and inspiring others to make changes in their life. Not necessarily, it's not really about, yes, we all want to, I don't even like to say lose weight. I like to say release.
Sure.
What's weighing us down.
Sure. Okay.
And it's not really about the food. It's not really about the exercise. And, many people out there may disagree,
Sure.
But what it's truly about is taking a step back and really asking yourself, what is it that I truly want in my life? And why is that important to me? And what difference is that going to make in my life? And, really going within, because really any diet's going to work, right? The problem is you're not keeping it off.
Sure.
So what's blocking you from keeping it off?
Well, the physicality of that releasing weight is just one part of it.
Exactly.
Right? There's the emotional and the spiritual piece of it. It also has to be involved in that release, where you're still going to be dragging it around.
Correct. Yeah. And it does start with the mindset, right? And that's a term that we often hear.
Right.
It's all about the mindset. It's all about the mindset. Well, the journey that I took, I always say we train our bodies, but mental strength is what gets us to the other side.
Good words. That's true.
Right.
Very true.
Because without fixing this and fixing this, it's going to continue to stay in that constant.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where the chaos comes from, right? Because your truth comes from your heart. I say that all the time, and I believe that, right? But if you got all this noise going on up here, you can't hear it. Okay, so until you can get this in line, get your mindset straight, and then you have the opportunity to connect, to get that alignment between mind and heart, and then your spirit comes through. But you have to be able to quiet your head so you can hear what your heart's saying to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hard part, right?
Yeah, right.
The hard part is the limiting beliefs, the self-sabotage talk. And a lot of women, just from my experience, I do work with some men, but majority of the people that I work with are women. And there's these constant voices going in our head of self-sabotage.
I mean, society drives us crazy, right? I mean, and weight management and body image is such a big deal, and it's ridiculous. We create an ideal. The media, marketing creates an ideal that is attainable by probably a fraction of the population. Right. Exactly. And then when you fall into that comparison trap, which we all do, again, because of what's thrown at us all the time. Yeah. I mean, we're all going to have something about us, about our body, about something that we're not happy with.
Right. Exactly. And, that's where it had to all start. It had all start with discovering, who I am. I'll put it to you this way. So it all started with really me taking a hard look at my current reality. Okay. Where I truly was when I had that moment, when I was with my son. And, that was probably the most mortifying moment of my life, being at the amusement park and not almost being able to get on that ride was not only embarrassing for me, but I could see the impact that it was having on my son. Right. So I really had to take a step back that day and really look within and say, this is my reality. I was 43 years old. I was pre-diabetic. I was high risk of heart disease. I was barely surviving, emotionally broken. I mean, I was almost on the verge of depression. And I honestly didn't realize how far I let myself go. And that was my moment of truth. I literally hit rock bottom that day.
Well, until you get that punch in the gut. I mean, do you see, because I felt it was easy to look past that stuff and convince myself that it wasn't an issue, right? Because I didn't want to face it. Right. And then you take that gut punch and all of a sudden you have no choice.
Yep. And in reality, to your point, it takes that. Yeah. For most people to make a change.
I was there. Absolutely.
Because you have to keep peeling the onion. And once you peel that onion and you get down to that last peel, right, it's do or die. Sure. Truly.
And there's and just like the onion, there's a lot of tears along the way.
Exactly.
And there has to be. That's good.
Exactly. So then you have to ask yourself, this is my current reality. What is it that I truly want? Like, what is that ultimate desired outcome? Right. And that tension in the middle of those point A and point B is really where the fight is. Sure. Because what happens is you have this tension and it's going well, and then all of a sudden we lax. Yep. And we get comfortable again. Yeah. Because this is going on. Right. And we're feeling good and we're but we realize that we still have a ways to go. But we get that resistance. It's human behavior.
Absolutely.
I mean, again, I'm not a psychologist but I've learned a lot from life experience and
still the best teacher as far as I'm concerned. It's you can learn a lot of things out of a book, okay, and then have no knowledge how to practically implement those into life, right? Until you step into that hole or get punched in the gut, however you want to say it, and really have no choice. Right, exactly. And that's kind of what happened to you and me, right? We didn't have a choice. We had to fix it. And I had a 13-year-old son. Like, he needed me. Sure. Yeah. And I Now, were you a single parent at that time?
No, not.
You were still married at that time?
I was still married at that time.
We'll get into divorce later.
Yeah, I was still married at that time. Okay. But he needed me.
Sure.
And the most disappointing part of that day was, I had a 13-year-old son that wanted his mother to go on this ride with him. Like, I was pretty pumped, that doesn't happen.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And then when I almost wasn't able to get on there, it just ripped my heart out. Right. Right. But the biggest aha moment for me was, it wasn't about how I was going to get there. I had to stop that insanity
Right.
of what's going to be the next quick fix thing for me to go on
Sure.
so I can get this off of me.
Mm-hmm.
I truly had to understand why. And I had to do it the right way.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a journey, and it still is a journey. Like, people say to me, Maria, do you cheat? And I don't like that word. It's so
Right.
negative.
It is. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
such a negative word.
Absolutely.
And I say to them, no, I don't cheat. And they look at me like deer in headlights. They're like, you never like have a cookie or a piece of pizza or whatever, right?
Right.
And I'm like, I didn't say that. What I do is I enjoy the simple pleasures in life when I so
Right.
choose to do so.
Right.
Because
Right.
I'm human,
Sure.
right?
Exactly.
And to deprive is only going to get you into that repent, repeat, binge cycle again.
Right.
You know? So, and to be honest, in full transparency, like, people, is this easy for me now? Sure, it's a way of life. It's my lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're all human.
Is it easier to lose the weight or to keep it off? Which was harder? Put it that way.
That's a really good question. I would have to say it can be a little bit of a struggle on both ends.
Oh, sure.
You
Sure.
know, the hardest part is yes, getting there. But again, it goes back to, why do we keep putting it back on?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's because a lot of it has to do with emotional eating. A lot of it has to do with masking our pain with our vice, which is food. And
Sure.
the hard thing about that is we have to eat,
Right.
right?
You-
It's
you
not
need
like it's
that. You
alcohol
need it,
or
right.
it's another substance. We have to eat,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So
That's what makes food so dangerous.
exactly. And I could get into another whole tangent about highly processed food, but that's another conversation for another day, right?
Okay.
But I would have to say, really sitting here, I would say the hard part is keeping it off, because there's never a destination.
Right.
Like, when you make that decision to make a healthy lifestyle change, there's never a destination.
Right.
It's an ongoing journey.
Absolutely. And there's temptation around every corner.
There's temptation around every corner.
Yeah.
Yep. And this time of year, especially, you know, given it's, you know, we're talking here during the holiday season.
Sure.
That is one of the most challenging times. Like, if everybody would just be mindful of what they were doing the 46 weeks out of the year, we wouldn't have to worry about the last 6 weeks of the year, right?
Right. That's exactly right.
We could enjoy them a little bit more.
That's exactly right.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure. And then you wouldn't be cheating or splurging. You'd just be enjoying simple pleasures.
Exactly.
Right?
Enjoying simple pleasures.
So, and you speak about this in your videos and things. So I know I'm not speaking out of turn, and I think people need to kind of a frame of reference. You lost 130 pounds.
Yes.
So you literally lost another you.
Yes.
Because, I mean, let's face it, you're like 5
So
foot
now
nothing.
everybody knows how
right?
much I weigh.
That's okay. That's okay. So, you know,
I'll forgive you.
You
for
have
that.
heels on today, but you're all of 5 foot nothing. So
Yeah, right.
when you think about that, I mean, that just day-to-day life had to be a struggle. You know, and it came to a head you said it was Kennywood, right?
Yeah.
So it came to a head at Kennywood and you got punched in the gut. But how did you, thinking back, how did you rationalize in your mind where you were before that point, right? Because you had to be struggling. Physically, you had to be physically struggling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was struggling. My career was being affected by it. My marriage was being affected by it.
Right.
Because I just wasn't feeling good about me. And when we tend not to feel good about ourselves, we become what I call closed and defensive.
Yes.
And when you do feel good about yourself and you are confident with yourself, you become open and curious.
Right.
You see?
Right.
And it was affecting my whole life.
Yep.
You know, unfortunately, it's part of some people's lives. My marriage ended for many reasons, you know, and so I had the loss of a marriage, which turned into a loss of relationships. It just was a domino
Right.
effect.
Yes.
You know, And it was hard. It was hard on me. It was hard on my son. It was just hard on everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's what, that's the tidal wave of divorce, right? Because it's not just you and your spouse parting ways, right? I mean, not even children. Right. The relationships around the couple relationships, I experienced that. I had friends that I had known forever, basically chose sides, and it's like, that's very frustrating, because they weren't internal. They didn't know what was going on, but that's, again, so going through a divorce and all of those things and dealing with the physical issues of the weight and the emotional issues of the weight, right? Because if you get to the point where you don't like yourself, or you even, a strong word is hate yourself, right? It's just a matter of time before you start projecting that anger and that hate onto the people around you.
Correct.
And it's human nature. You can't avoid it.
Right.
So those words that we say to ourselves, that self-talk, if it's negative, okay, it's just a matter of time before you're going to start, except Nick. Everybody loves Nick.
Yeah.
Right? So you won't, but it's just a matter of time until you start projecting that onto the people around you. And that, again, that's all part of that domino effect.
It is. And, I will say this, the one thing that we promised one another was to make sure that my son was not part of the separation, and a lot of people to this day commend us for that.
Well, it's a very, very mature situation, because that is a highly volatile emotional situation, no matter how you look at it. Listen, having gone through a divorce, there's no such thing as an amicable divorce. It doesn't exist, right? Yeah. So if you can sit down together and make that choice and stick to it on behalf of your children, that's a tremendous commitment.
Yeah, and we did it. We really worked hard together, and we did it. And I just, I share that because I just want to encourage.
Right.
We never want divorce, right?
No.
That was not the intention.
You don't get married even thinking about that.
Right. No, you don't. And we never want that.
Right.
But, things change, life change. And I just share that because I truly want to just try to encourage people to always remember, it's to keep the I don't know what the best word is, but harmony. Harmony is probably a good word.
It's a good word.
I don't want to use balance.
Yeah, harmony is a good word.
I don't believe in, there's no such thing as balance.
No, and we seek it in everything, but there's really not. There really isn't. You're always going to tip the scale one way or another.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So harmony. Try to keep the harmony.
That's a better word.
This is what I like. It's kind of the perspective. Just your harmony in life in general.
Well, it is just in life in general. We talk a lot in my day job about work-life balance, right? But at any time, you'll never be completely balanced. You know what I mean? Because you're always going to have more stuff going on at work that's going to take you away from home. You're always going to have an issue at home that's going to impact your work. So you try to keep it as close, but if you can keep, and again, harmony is a great word, even for that. Keep that in harmony, right? And just keep everything, all the moving pieces, keep them from banging into each other. Okay, that's just life.
Exactly. You're always going to, like you said, you're always going to have one. Being an entrepreneur, such as myself, or solopreneur,
there you go.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's hard to find that balance, because if you're not out there, doing what you do best and, impacting the lives that you want to impact,
right?
You're putting so much heart and soul into it that sometimes you forget to take about the self-care.
And that you have to do that in where you're at with your business, being a solopreneur, which is a great word, but you have to pour everything out into that. And so what do you do to keep from emptying when you pour into your work? How do you keep from emptying Maria completely?
Yeah. And that in the beginning, when I decided, I was in corporate for 25 years. So I made a decision 5 years ago to put that life behind me.
Okay.
I always like to use the quote with Steve Harvey, right? Sometimes you just got to jump,
Yeah.
and the parachute's going to eventually open. You're going to hit a lot of turbulence going down.
Sooner or later it will.
Sooner or later it's going to open,
Yeah.
right? And what I basically do, and I'm not perfect at it. You know,
Nobody is.
I always like to take like a half a day on Fridays,
Yeah.
you know, and just disconnect. You know, like a half a day on Fridays to disconnect. Because social media, I mean, if you're not on social media today, you're not in business.
Right.
And that's
You're
the
exactly
balance
right. You're exactly
there,
right. You know, when I got into it, when I first, because I was doing corporate in the engineering industry for 30 years and decided I needed a change because I was just worn out. I had been just come out of I left a toxic environment, and I said, well, you know, I've been doing this. I'm good at it. So I started a little LLC and hung out a shingle, right? So the first actual client I took, because I was a little panicked, I said, okay, I need a paycheck. So I jumped into this company, and after about a month, I realized that I really didn't like the dude that owned this company. Didn't like him at all. Like literally nothing about him, right?
Yeah.
Everything he stood for, it just was totally opposite of me. So then but I'm stuck, right? Because, you know, I'm getting paid. I get this retainer. I'm doing the work, and I can't walk away until I have something to replace it.
Right.
And it just sucked everything out of me. Everything. And it impacted Terry Lynn and I, because I was short, I was this, I was that. So that was, to me, is a big danger, because I can't work with or for someone that I don't like, that I don't feel any connection to or any alignment with.
Right, exactly. You're exactly right.
Have you encountered that?
During my corporate, are
Well,
you talking about
it happens a lot in corporate,
well,
right?
yeah, but personally,
Yeah.
I would have to say, not every client and coach are fit for each other.
Yes.
Right?
I agree.
You may feel in the beginning that they are, but then as you begin your journey, sometimes
Peel
it's
the
just
onion.
not, peel the onion.
Right.
Sometimes you're just not meant to work together. And sometimes, you know, sometimes a client thinks they're ready and they're not.
Sure.
You know, and no matter how much I dig the onion with them, they could say, Maria, I'm ready.
Right.
But then
But you have to know they are. You have to feel it.
I have to feel it, you know, and sometimes I feel it and sometimes it wasn't the case. You know,
Okay.
I'm human.
Sure.
But I have had a few, you know, where it just wasn't the right fit. And we both realized it. And it was an okay thing.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
because I can't serve.
Well, it's a two-way street, right?
Right,
Because the
right.
client has to feel that from you.
Right.
So not only are you trying to fill them out, you're trying to give them what they need so that they
Right.
can be comfortable with you.
Right.
So can you walk me through, let's just say for the sake of argument, you know, you and I are friends. I have somebody that needs coaching, and I'm gonna send Nick to you so you can coach him up. Okay. So walk me through how the process with Nick, you know, bringing him in, how does that all work with your business?
Yeah. So really the first thing I do is I just have a conversation. I just truly want to get to know them, and I want to serve them on that phone call. So when we have that initial phone call, my intention is just to serve them, to listen to them, to hear, you know, what their challenges have been, how long they've been trying to do this, and really help give them at least one insight for them to take away.
Okay.
If we feel they're not ready or they feel they're not ready.
Okay.
You know? But
Something to think about.
something to think about.
Okay.
So the start of the process is really just getting on the phone with them, understanding who they are, what is it they want to achieve, and then peeling the onion.
Okay.
And asking them, you know, what I do, I just want to make sure that they're comfortable, because, you know, I have to ask sometimes intrusive questions, but I always ask permission because I need to understand where they are,
Right.
and what caused them to get to this point. Because a lot of emotional eating, a lot of it is masking what you
Right.
don't want to face. And again, I'm not a therapist or
Right.
but I do have some education in that area. But it's really just getting to know them
Mm-hmm.
and understanding where they are and what it is they truly want, and walking them through their current reality and helping them, awakening them to really, truly what their current reality is.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it goes back to they're afraid. It's the fear of making that change, because sometimes it's a feeling of shame because they've tried everything, and here they are right back again, just like me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I lost the same 50, 60, 70 pounds over and over again.
Right.
But what happens is, in order for us to become who we want to be,
Mm-hmm.
we have to leave that old person behind.
Right.
And that's a scary thing,
Oh, absolutely.
because we have to go from this old identity and move into this new identity.
Mm-hmm.
And that can bring a lot of fear,
Sure.
a lot of stress, a lot of
looking over your shoulder.
of looking over your shoulder.
And that has to be hard for you as the coach to have somebody that keeps looking back for that old version of themselves, because that's where the comfort was. Even though they know in their heart it was wrong, it was the wrong place for them to be, they became comfortable.
Yep. And I think you bring up a really good point when you say comfort, because our brains, and this is fact, this is based on research, our brains have like 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day.
Okay. True.
85% of them are meant to go what I call below the line, to negativity.
Yeah.
So that's what we're up against. So we want to leave this old identity behind, and we want to create this new person, but we have these conflicting beliefs, because our brains want to take us back to that comfort zone, right? We can't have these conflicting beliefs in trying to get to this new person.
Absolutely.
It's almost like grieving process, because you're leaving one person behind to create this new person. It's like a rebirth.
Sure.
Yes.
In grief, everybody grieves differently.
Exactly.
So everybody is going to take that journey of becoming completely differently. They're gonna step different. Some are going to step faster, some slower. So, but your practice, and it is a practice, even though it's not a medical, but I call it a practice. So you focus on health and wellness, but it's not just weight loss. It's holistic, really. It's the whole overall wellness of somebody. So if you got somebody like Nick, who's an athlete, right? But they just are basically struggling to stay focused and to keep their nutrition and all those things, because you've become an athlete, triathlon and half marathons and all those things. And so you went from not being able to almost not being able to get on the racer at Kennywood to a triathlete.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, but I did.
Who does that?
I don't know. And I jumped right into the Olympic. I don't know what I was thinking, but what led to that was I had the loss of a job when I was going through this journey. I had my first ever experience with a downsize. And
so divorce, weight loss, and being downsized professionally all at the same time.
Pretty much, yeah, all at the same time. Talk about mental strength, right?
Listen, you're like a superhero of some sort.
Know.
There's got to be a cape there somewhere.
Well,
because
Wonder Woman was an idol of mine when I was younger.
No, there you go.
Aged myself.
There you go. Well, we're gonna get into some stuff that unfortunately is gonna age us both, but that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah. So anyway, where was I? Oh, so I was actually in the process of getting my personal training certification.
Okay.
Because I do want to share this real quick. To this day, and I don't see this person anymore, unfortunately. If I didn't have that person in my life that supported me, that coach that supported me, he was my rock. And after I had lost the 25 pounds, like I had lost about 25 pounds.
Okay.
I'm digressing here for 1 second.
It's okay.
And then I'll get back
I'm with you.
get back to the, I made a decision, right? Because everything we do, every decision we make makes the life that we live.
Sure.
And we don't always make the best decisions.
Right.
So I made a decision to go to a gym that had an open house that day. And 24/7, no excuses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I drove around the parking lot 3 times before I got the courage to go into the gym.
Okay.
And that's how most women that I work with, it's scary, right?
Sure it is.
So anyway, I finally went in and I'm standing there and I'm looking around and I'm looking at him, right? And I'm like, right away I said to myself, thoughts, I don't belong here. I mean, that man could be in the Carnegie Museum of Art. You know, like, why am I here? You know?
Yeah.
And just as I was ready to walk back out the door, he grabbed me. And he said, we're so excited you're here. You know, where are you going? And I'm like, oh, I left my wallet in the car because I didn't want him to think that I was leaving, right? He goes, oh, don't worry about that. Let's talk. Well, this man just took me under his wing. And he was on a date one night and I was having a breakdown and I called him. Do you know he stayed on the phone with me for 45 minutes because I was having a breakdown? But the point of it is I had that person there in my life.
It's important.
And to this day, I am so humbly grateful for him. Again, I don't see him anymore, but he truly was impactful in my life, you know, and I say that because I could have never taken the journey that I've taken on my own. And I want everybody to realize that I didn't do this on my own. I had the support of that coach. I had the support of a community, of my friends, of my family. You can't take a journey on this alone.
No, and if you
can't.
don't have that community, if you don't have that person, that's all the more reason to engage with a coach.
Exactly.
Right? Because you
exactly.
can't do it alone.
No, you can't. And 85% of people that try to end up right back where they were. And I finally realized that. Like, I needed that support, you know? So anyway, getting back to the triathlete, because I digressed. I was at home. I was studying for my training certification. So I got this flyer in the mail for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, their team and training programs.
Okay.
So I was reading it and I'm like, oh, why don't I take my time and serve and put it into good?
Okay.
And right then, that's when we had that first recession when the market crashed in 2000. I forget. Anyway, but I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this Olympic thing. Because they give you training and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I just made a decision and I did it. And then when I'm in Philadelphia and I get in the water with this wetsuit on that I've never worn in my life, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? I'm in this river and I got to swim almost a mile. And I'm like, okay, breathe. Just get from one, what do they call them? The buoys? Is that what they call them?
Buoys,
Buoys?
Yeah.
One buoy, and then just get to the next one.
Yeah.
Like, that was my mental focus.
One step at a time. Yeah.
So I finally made it down the river, right? And you're going with the current, right?
Well, that's good.
But when you make this J turn to get to the land, the current's going against you. Okay? So I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm swimming and swimming and swimming. And finally I get to the shore, and this gentleman, he reached his hand out to me, and I looked up to him. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. All I wanted to do was get out of that water. She's like, get out of that water. I'm like, I got this now. You know, the bike, you know, the
we're good.
The bike and then the running, we're good, you know? But that's why I did it. You know, that's what drove me to do it. The bigger outcome of that was it was a goal. It kept me focused, and it kept me continuing on that health journey because I found something that I wanted to do, and it kept me focused.
Okay.
You know?
Sure.
So that's kind of what led to that. I didn't do the sprint. I didn't even know
do-
there was a sprint. I just knew that this was an Olympic triathlon, and I was just going to do it. I trained in a pool, never been in a body of water like that. Yeah, I just floated.
It was,
But I finished.
you did finish.
I finished.
You did finish, and not really all that good at planning back at that point, but you've gotten better.
No.
You've gotten better.
I got better. I
You've gotten better,
absolutely
and from experience.
I absolutely got better from experience. Yep.
So we touched on divorce a little bit, and you, you actually have kind of put, where you are chronologically in life when you said that you made this transformation, started at 43, and you've been took you like 13, 14 years ago. So I mean, it's safe to say that you're over 50.
13. You can say I'm over 50.
You're over 50.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation, and we're joking, and it was funny that Nick was participating because he's like 9, but so dating over 50.
Oh boy, go ahead.
Interesting. So you've had some experiences, with that, and particularly in southwestern Pennsylvania. Okay, we're a unique population here, both male and female. We are definitely unique. So what are you doing?
You're scaring me. What am I doing? Elaborate on that.
Well, you're a successful businesswoman. You have a great personality. You put yourself out there. You're very open, you're attractive, all of these different, educated, articulate, all these different things. So from my perspective, you could go a couple of different ways. First of all, why are you still single? Secondly, are you being too picky, or which, so, and then, it's an interesting dynamic, because when I got divorced, I was young. I was just turning 40, and I was blessed to find Terry Lynn when I did, and she's, she was that person for me. Like you had, she pulled me out of the water. Okay, literally saved my life, and I've been very transparent about that, and I haven't always been easy for her because I had my moments, but we're still together, and she's still here, all these years later, and still pointing out, the stuff I do wrong and the stupid stuff.
But that's what women do.
Well, and that's what, it's a thing. But when I think about dating at this stage of life, now I'm older than you, but even in my 50s and now my early 60s, I can't imagine being in that position and looking for a relationship, and not just, casual going out for drinks, but I know it starts there, but relationships today are hard enough on established long-term relationships. Sure. So finding a new one and the right fit and all that has to be a chore in itself.
It is. It's.
Because I know, the reason I'm asking you this is because there's like 2 or 3 single guys that watch the podcast. So we're gonna.
We're interviewing me.
Yeah.
So here's.
And as we're talking right now, when we do this, Nick's going to be showing your Match.com profile in the background. So we'll.
The one I shut off.
The one you deleted it.
Oh gosh, help us all. So here's what I've learned. Being in I think as you go through this process of, the marriage, the divorce, and then I was in another long-term relationship after that.
Okay. And
looking back at that experience, I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and there's some history that. And I hate to go back there, but when the pandemic hit, for example, it gave me a lot of time to just do me, right? Many of us, right?
Well, and that's where I was going.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you have to do you first.
Right.
And it all goes back to really part of what you coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so I'm gonna get into a little personal things here, because I just, my goal is to serve, and
Yes.
to get, so I'm gonna get a little opened here. So I realized that I'm really gonna get opened here. All my life, I always had a man in my life, right? So I went from my father to, we're getting down a psychology road here. I went from my father to my husband, to the bridge of going from married to single. And I had a gentleman in my life that was just truly a friend. And then I went into this other long-term relationship. So what I realized was I never had an opportunity to just do me, and experience that, because at college I stayed at home and experience life on my terms, So I did that. Like, I took almost 2 years just to do me, to discover me, and truly understand what I could do better moving forward. What didn't work, maybe why it didn't work, what I could have done differently,
Right.
And men are simple creatures. They truly are.
Oh, absolutely.
And, I've been doing a lot of research on that too. But here's what I've learned through all my experiences.
Okay.
Your values and beliefs truly have to align. They have to align. Because if they don't align, the tension, it's going to, that person's not going to be happy and you're not going to be happy.
Right.
So when I really took a step back to understand what are my true values and beliefs, what is it that, again, goes back to what I talked about earlier, what is it that I truly want?
Right. Comes
Right?
back to there.
Goes
Right.
back to here, right? Because I've got more years behind me than I do in front of me. So I wouldn't say, am I being too picky? I would say the values and beliefs are important to me. It's like core
Right.
values with a company, right?
Right. Right.
If you don't have core values for your company, like your tagline for this, you have core values for your podcast.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And if you're with somebody and your values and beliefs don't align, it's hard. It's hard. And I also feel that people at our age, we're so settled in our lives.
Right.
It makes changes hard to make that new identity.
Oh, my goodness,
It goes back
yes.
again, right?
Yes.
You're going from a single identity to now. And the sad part is I'm on these dating sites and I read all the same things.
Right.
I'm looking for a long-term relationship. I'm looking for the one. But how meaningful are those words?
Sure. Sure.
How meaningful are those
'Cause
words?
when I got divorced, I said that, but I wasn't.
Right.
And I think
Right.
the thing of it is, I went from I experienced a very volatile divorce. It was not a good divorce at all. It was very unpleasant. There's estrangement from my children, the whole 9 yards. And then I met Terry Lynn and went straight into that. And I wasn't ready, and it was all on me. She's amazing, but made it very difficult for her, right? Because I didn't know what I wanted. I thought I knew what I wanted, but I didn't. And she represented everything that I ultimately ended up did it. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. But at the time, I was all over the place, and it made it terribly difficult for her. But for whatever reason, she fought through it and stayed, and we're still here, and we survived it. But a lot of people that jump from the frying pan into the fire, so to speak, right? And it goes back to taking that time to get to know yourself.
Right.
And have you encountered anybody in your business where they just stay in a really unhealthy relationship just because they don't want to be alone?
Absolutely.
And there's a lot. I've been amazed because I've seen so much of that, and it surprised me how many people do that. And it's not, people who are needy or codependent. It's people who go out in the world and are very successful in business, in life, but they come home to this toxic relationship because they just don't want to go home to an empty house. It's literally that simple.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring this up because you have to truly understand what you value and what your beliefs are. To just let me back up for a minute. So the decision that I've made moving forward in terms of, what does a relationship look like? Here's the problem. The problem is, to your point, we jump into these relationships like this.
Sure.
And we don't even know each other yet.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So the whole approach is, let's just truly let's build a friendship. And I know that might sound cliche-ish, but build a friendship. It's like you can't build a house without a foundation.
Well,
right?
And that is difficult for men and women in this country in particular, because our society has become so obsessed with the physicality of relationship, of and even in same-sex relationships, it's all the same. The focus becomes on the sexual part of it, and it becomes hard because to get both parties on the same page, to build that relationship, and to start out being friends first, right? Because that's important.
It is important. Like, we say intimacy, right? Intimacy isn't just that sexual experience.
There's a big difference between the two.
There's a big difference between the two.
They're part and parcel, but they're different.
Exactly.
Intimacy and sex are two different things.
Exactly. And I really feel there's a lot of confusion there with that, and intimacy is about friendship.
It's about conversations.
It's about communication.
Right.
It's about having meaningful and open communication, and I'm going to stick up for the guys here.
Thank you.
I'm going to stick up for the guys here because this is a lesson that I've learned, from my experience that I'm going to do differently next time, is they don't communicate because they just get beat down.
There's a lot to that. There's a lot to that. Yes.
I'm not here to say that all.
No, I get it.
But a lot of times, all they want is, even if it's just taking out the garbage, all they want is, hey, hon, thanks for taking out the garbage. That's how simple. Or thanks for carrying the laundry downstairs.
Well, and you think that you're right. I agree with you.
Simple as that sounds.
I agree with you. And like now, and I'm going to use Terry Lynn as an example. Okay, she expects me to take out the trash. Okay, if I forget, I hear about it. But when I don't forget, and I go out and I make this beautiful sculpture at the end of the roads for the garbage man to come and pick it up, I don't get anything from that, right? I'm like, what do you think? Huh? How about this? Look what I did. And there's like nothing. It's just crickets, okay?
I'm sorry, Terry Lynn.
One time I forget to take it out, it's like, I hear about that. And it's like, do I expect to get a pat on the head every time I do something good? Because I've always I open doors, I pull out chairs. I don't expect anybody, and I do it for men and women. Don't get me wrong. I don't expect a thank you for something that I should be doing.
Right.
But every once in a while, just like, hey, I see, thanks for that. I appreciate you.
Right.
So, and I get that a lot of guys that I talk to, friends of mine, they feel that way.
Yeah.
And they're like, I know their wives, and they say, man, she's hard on me. Holy God. She's the nicest person I know, So there is that part of it, but the flip side of it is, for me, Terry Lynn is a worker, right? She's that person. Like, she'll work an 8-hour day and then go home and build a barn or something, because she's like a construction worker. She's So, but I appreciate who she is and what she does so much, with kids and grandkids. She's like the greatest grandma of all time, and I don't do that with her. I don't say, hey, sweetheart, listen, I'm watching, you're amazing. And I appreciate what you're doing. I don't do that enough for her either. So it's a two-way street.
It is. No, it is a two-way street. And vulnerability is the biggest.
Right.
Like, we have to, and that's the communication part of it.
Yeah.
It's having communication in a calm way. And if you're not ready to talk about it, then step away and say, you know what? I want to have this conversation with you, but I just need some time.
Well, and as men, we're taught not to share our feelings.
Exactly.
You know,
because especially your generation,
you have to fight. Yeah, you have to fight through a lot to get to that point where you are brave enough and confident enough to be vulnerable.
Exactly. It's not an easy thing for men to be vulnerable because, again, society dictates.
Especially the older generation like me. Thanks for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know, you pointing out that I'm old.
You know. Well, I mean, you are. You know, it's like hold
Nick,
the
how'd she get in here?
Wait a minute. You're expected to hold your feelings in.
No, you're absolutely right.
You're
suck it
expected
up.
to beat your
suck
chest.
it up. Rub some dirt on it. Go take a lap.
Right. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to do this.
Right.
And yeah. So it's just, you know, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I don't know what to say here. You know what I mean? But
it's true.
Just,
well, yeah, we're two different creatures.
And men's minds are different. Like women are very emotional. Men are very matter of fact.
My dad used to tell me,
know?
If you live to be 300, you'll never understand women. So don't hurt yourself trying.
You'll never understand. You'll never break the code.
Not in a million years. Yeah. So I don't even try anymore.
You'll never break the code.
I just go along with it.
Never break. Because if we say to you, honey, does this make me look, you know?
Oh, no. Whoa, we're never going to go there.
You won't even go there.
No.
You know, so.
Nope.
So
that's when I go take out the trash.
So the best thing to do is to say, well, okay, so you've just asked me this question. Well, how would you like me to answer it? Because if I answer it this way, you're going to get upset. But then if I answer it this way and say you look amazing, you're still going to
You're
debate
supposed to say that.
You're still going to debate. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure I look amazing? Are you sure? Because that's just how we are.
I know.
So on our end, we need to say, we've asked for your opinion. We need to respect it. And not,
and that's true. You know,
right?
and it's
so
like.
So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's very true. And, you know, I don't know how you feel about this, but a lot of women will like, you know, Terry Lynn, when I would do a lot of galas and a lot of formal things, right?
Uh-huh.
So I go get a tux, I put it on. In 15 minutes, I'm ready to go. You know, I'm like,
right.
And, you know, and she's got, that's all I got to do. You know, it's like, this is
not
difficult.
Have hair, like,
right.
You know.
So it's just like, Nick, you got to start screening guests better.
I mean, you wash it dry, and it's done.
I don't even have to do that.
Right.
I just
right.
I'm done.
Right.
But she's got to go through all of these different things, you know, and I don't get that a lot of times. You know, I take that for granted. Everything that she has to do, not to look a certain way, but to feel comfortable.
Yep.
Right? Because even though, and I think women like the glamour and they like to dress up, but it's not natural.
No.
Right? Natural is sweats with your hair up in a ponytail and a ball cap. Like you were the last time we talked, right?
Yeah.
So putting on a gown and heels and the makeup and hair and all that is not a natural thing for the average woman to do.
No.
Right?
And it's exciting for us.
Sure.
Like we get excited.
Right.
When we get to dress up and, put the bling on and, But to your point, it takes me an hour and a half. And that's just to get ready. That's not the glamour and the gown and the galas, right? Because the nails and the hair and the makeup, you got to get all the art, It takes a little longer, But, and I know you guys don't even care about that.
From the time I get in the shower till I'm in the car pulling out is maybe 20 minutes.
Must be nice. Must be nice.
It's a skill.
No, it's not a skill. You guys don't have to do all this.
Well, one of the reasons why I have the whiskers is because I can eliminate that couple of minutes of shaving. I can get out faster.
Well, I don't know if I can eliminate that couple minutes of shaving.
Let me go a different direction here for a minute.
Okay.
And I want to talk a little bit more about, you mentioned your dad.
Yeah.
And I've heard you talk about your dad, and you had a pretty special relationship with him.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about him and about your relationship with him growing up.
So my dad, the most important thing to my dad was family. That's all he cared about. He worked to give a life to his family. And he put my mother through nursing school. He worked 3 jobs. In fact, he worked on the strip district on the platform for over 30 years.
There you go.
And that's kind of how my brother started his journey. My dad was he was there for everything. Like, he was there for our games. He was, and it's interesting because when I made the decision to compete for the first time, I'll never forget this. It was so funny. He did say to me, he said, if anybody can do it, my baby can do it.
There you go.
You know?
Yeah, there you go.
That always sticks in my mind, that he always would say that to me. If anybody can do it, my baby can do it. And he has supported me, you know, through everything.
Right.
He's always been there. You know, he was Italian, you know, so he had that upbringing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I'm grateful for it, you know.
Sure.
And, you know, as you know, he recently passed.
Right.
And I had a big launch going on that right in the middle of when that unexpectedly happened. And I could have shut it down and I could have canceled it. But all I could hear in the back of my mind was, if anybody can do it, my baby can do it.
There you go.
So I had to do it because
you had no choice at that point.
I had no choice because I knew that that's what he would want me to do.
Right.
You know, but gosh, he was at my brother's football games and he was at my softball games. And I mean, and he loved the ice cream, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'd take us camping every weekend and up to Ohio Pow and Pymatuming with all the fish. And
sure.
He loved his Snickers and his ice cream bar and his ice cream. Like, that's what made him happy. Give him a remote after he retired.
That's all you need.
And his Snickers and his ice cream, and that's all he needed, right?
Yeah. Like you said, guys are simple. They're easy to figure it out.
Guys are simple and easy to figure out, you know. And he loved, his grandchildren, you know, and his great-grandchildren.
That's awesome.
You know, but he left behind quite the legacy, and it makes me proud.
Well, and it goes back to beliefs and what's in your heart, and a lot of what your beliefs and what you're carrying came from that relationship with your father.
Yep, absolutely, because I value family. You know, I value hard work. I value success. I value, obviously, health and well-being, you know, and those are important to me. And it's what keeps me going. Right. You know, because nothing is given for nothing.
That's exactly right.
You know, you gotta
You have to give to receive. You gotta put in the work. You gotta show up and put in the work.
Yep. You have to
especially when you don't want to.
Yeah. Because guess what? What's the old quote? I have it hanging up on my wall. It doesn't matter if you don't feel like doing it today. I forget the quote. I can't think of it. It's hanging in my kitchen because I keep it up there. You know? Because there are days where I'm a human.
Well, we all have that. We all have those days where we just like, nah, I'm not doing it today. You know, but that is the most important day. That's the day you have to get out the door. Right? Yep. Showing up when you don't want to, or you're not at your best is the most important thing that you can do.
Yep, exactly.
You have to do it.
You have to show up. And that's part of the solopreneur or the entrepreneur's journey, right?
Right.
You know, you fall down, you got to get back up. Yeah. It's like Denzel Washington is another one that I love to listen to his speeches because he always talks about falling forward. Yeah. Just keep falling forward.
Well, you know, somebody told me once, if you fall down 1,000 times, you still can't give up because there's 1,001.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And just, what's that story on Napoleon Hill in the Think and Grow Rich book about the gentleman way back in the day? He was 3 feet from gold, and he sold the gold mine. Mm-hmm. And the next person that bought it
only had to go 3 feet.
Right. You know, so that always sticks in the back of my mind because, you know, full transparency, there are days where I'm just tired.
Sure.
You know,
sure, we all get there.
And I'm like, I did this because why? You know, but then yesterday I posted a little reel with the social media stuff.
Okay.
And I put a post out there, and one of my clients shared it.
Okay.
And I thanked her for it. And it's these little things that keep me going. Mm-hmm. No, Maria, thank you for continuing to inspire all of us.
There you go.
So it's like when I get those little, I mean, I get notes from people that I don't even know.
Mm. Oh, don't you love that? I mean, that is the coolest part of it. You know, I've had people stop me on the street and thank me for writing the blog every day.
Oh,
I have
love your
no
blog.
idea who they are.
I love your blog.
And, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But, you know, sometimes I think about, you know, is it worth it? Am I getting through to anybody? Because, there are people, my friends and everything, and there are a lot of people who give positive feedback. But it's when that one person who you don't see their name, you know, they don't leave a comment, you know, on it. They don't do a like or anything like that. So you don't know that name. And then all of a sudden somebody comes up to you and says, I love what you wrote today or the other day. And it really made me think and it helped me and blah, blah, blah. That is what is important to me. I don't count likes and things like that.
Right.
I try to respond to every single comment, but I think those people who read it and get impacted by it, but don't say anything, you know. And then when they run into you or bump into you, that's huge.
I mean, I read one the other day, and I'm sorry I'm having a master moment, but it touched me. I'm like, I needed to hear this today. Even me. I mean, like, I need things like that in my life.
We all do. You know, you sent me over your speaker reel, and I watched it. And, you know, I mean, we're not like lifelong best friends. We haven't known each other for a long time. We connected because I think that we're very like-minded, right? And we do a lot of the same things, not only for work, but for life. But when I watched that reel, that video, it was inspiring to me, you know, because that's when I thought I was thinking, you know, I really wanted to have you on the podcast, right? Because of what, you know, when we did Denise's Day of Empowerment, you know, you said some things that really got my attention, right? So I said to Nick that day, I said, I think Maria would be a good guest, and we thought about it, and then when we talked last week,
oh boy, I was a conversation piece.
Yeah. So, but I thought you number one you would be who you are, right? Because open and transparent and have a great conversation. And I was intrigued by your story, what I knew of it. Okay. So when I asked you officially to be on the show and you said yes, and so I started to do some research. But it wasn't until you sent that video to me that I really said, yeah, this is going to be good.
Aw,
because you've overcome a lot. You know, and you're here and you're still fighting and still going out there every day and kicking butt.
I'm trying. I mean, there's 86 million people in this world that are pre-diabetic and don't even know it.
Listen, and I mentioned to you that I'm intimate with diabetes. I don't have it, but Terry Lynn's been type 1 diabetic for some time now, over 20 years. And she uses a pump, an insulin pump. Yeah. And but, you know, at the time, she was in her late 30s, maybe 40. She was an athlete, running every day, working out, maybe weighed 110 pounds soaking wet, right? And no history of it in her family, at least that she knew of. And like really she went to the endocrinologist, and to this day, she's been with that guy, and he still can't tell her why. He just scratches his head. There's no reason medically, clinically, that she went straight from her first visit. She got her first insulin shot in her first visit there. So they
don't have any family history of type 1? Because type 1 isn't, from my understanding, I'm not a medical professional. I need to keep saying that. It's not reversible.
No, it's not. And normally, if you're type 1, it comes on onset as early age, as a child.
Yeah, right.
So right around 40, with no evidence or no warning, came right out of the blue.
Yeah.
So that is important to me. So what do you do with a client who is in that pre-diabetes range, that they could go either way?
Yeah. So normally when that happens, they've had a wake-up call. They've got their A1C results, and they're right in that borderline of getting into type 2 diabetes.
Right.
It's lifestyle change.
Right.
It's okay, let's take a look at what you're doing, Again, digging first in terms of what they want. But nutrition is 90% of the disease prevention.
Sure. Absolutely.
We can't predict the future, to your point with your wife, but we can do things to prevent it.
Yeah.
And nutrition, as I learned, is everything.
Right.
It's medicine to our bodies. And am I perfect? No. I enjoy the simple pleasures in life when I so choose to do so. But honestly, my journey now, 85% of the time, I'm eating healthy. I'm fueling my body with good nutrition.
And you are Italian.
Yes,
so
exactly.
That's a fight in itself.
Well, the good news is I live by myself, so there's nothing in the house, because if it comes in the house, I put it there, right? Well, it's interesting because I just talked about this
By the way, they have
yesterday.
some of the best cannoli here you'll ever get.
Not like Moya's.
No. It's good
really?
stuff. Good stuff. You got to try.
I'll have to treat myself.
There's the treat.
Pleasure.
There you go. Simple pleasure.
Simple pleasure.
And not cheating, just treating.
Not cheating. So now, see, if my dad was still here, I'd grab a couple and take him over because he loved his cannolis. But what was I saying? Where was I going? What were we talking about?
I don't have the
It
slightest
was going to be good, too. It was going to be good. I'm having another master moment. You know what those are, don't you?
I do.
They're not senior moments because I'm not,
I know.
I'm not the big,
You're not as senior as I am.
I'm not the 6'0" yet. I'm still on the
I can't even see that anymore. I'm way behind. That's way back there. I don't remember what that looks like.
Oh, the Italian thing. I know where I was going.
Okay.
Do you know I eat pasta once a year?
Is that right?
On my honor.
No kidding.
I eat once a year.
And why is that? That's a choice?
It's a choice.
Okay.
But the real reason why I eat pasta once a year is it's my holiday, which is Christmas,
right?
It's because I make it. So I have to eat it because it's good.
Right.
And then I make the meatballs. My dad used to call them the atom bottoms.
Yeah.
Right,
well,
right.
Listen,
but it's processed. Like, it's so highly processed. And I know it tastes so good, but I just don't want to feel that way.
True.
You know what I mean? Like, I'll go down to the pizza shop in McMurray. Once in a while, I get again. Like, I make the cauliflower pizza when I want pizza, but once in a while, I want pizza. So I'll go down to the local pizza shop in McMurray, and I'll get one slice, and I'll get a side salad. Now, the old Maria would have got a small and ate the whole thing, But anyway, what I was getting at, now it's coming back to me again, is the 3-bite rule.
Okay.
And I want to share this with you.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a good point.
I'm with you.
This is actually based on scientific research, right?
Okay.
After the 3rd bite, like, your brain's on autopilot.
Okay.
So here's a tip during the holiday season. Okay.
Write this down, Nick.
Enjoy the simple pleasures. Oh, he probably burns 5,000 calories a second. So think of downtown Pittsburgh.
Okay.
You know, I know this airs everywhere, but if we think of downtown Pittsburgh on light up night,
Okay.
and that moment when all the lights go on,
Okay.
it's like what your brain's doing
Mhm.
with the first bite, right?
Sure.
It's going off
Yeah.
like downtown Pittsburgh light up night, right? Got all these, you know, and then like the euphoria, and then you take the second bite, and you're standing there and you're still looking at the lights, and you're still, you know, and then you take the third bite. Well, the night's over, everybody's going home, right? After that, you could have 90 more bites.
It's not going to get better.
It's not going to get any better.
Right.
So during the holidays, if there's things that you truly don't get to have except for
Mhm.
this period of time,
Mm-hmm.
take like little tastes of it
Take 3 bites.
and be mindful about it.
Right.
You know, like for Thanksgiving, I want my pumpkin pie, my stuffing, and my homemade sweet potatoes.
There you go.
I skip the mashed potatoes. I skip all the creamy crap. I skip the rolls, and
Mm-hmm.
and I have those are my
You can
simple
have those
pleasures.
any day of the year.
Right? Because you can't get stuffing from a bird other than Thanksgiving, right? You can't.
It's true.
Your pumpkin pie, like it's pumpkin spice season, right?
Right.
You usually can't get that. That's my
That's
favorite
true.
pie.
It's mine,
You know?
mine as well. Yeah, I love it.
So I have my slice and no guilt. But that's how I've trained my mind to enjoy.
That's huge.
You know?
That's huge because, you know, if I had to give up pasta, I'd be angry.
Yeah.
You know, if there was a
can-
reason that I couldn't have it,
Yeah.
right? You know, 'cause I don't overindulge in anything, right? But moderately, I
Yeah.
have the things that I love. Now, don't get
Sure.
me wrong. I'm blessed with a great metabolism, and I actually have a problem keeping weight on, not taking
yeah,
weight
we
off.
talked about that.
Right?
Yeah, we talked
So-
about that.
So I love pasta, I love pizza, but what happens is I tend to go into a phase like, "Oh, I need to gain a couple pounds. I'm like, you know, my pants aren't fitting. I have to tighten up another notch on the belt. So then I'll go out and like just overindulge in pizza,
Yeah.
or you know,
Yeah.
because I'm, you know, and then I'm gaining weight in the wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not constructive. It's not functional. So it's a hard thing to balance nutrition, even if you are athletic and in shape, in physically fit. Nutrition is still critically important.
Absolutely.
Because
Yep.
if you go into the gym and you're lifting weights, those weights, lifting that weight is not what's going to make you, it's not going to transform your body.
Right.
Right? It's
Right.
the nutrition,
Right.
the food that you're putting in your body while you're doing that.
Right. Yep. Absolutely 100%. Because an endurance athlete is going to be completely different to their needs than what maybe a body, you know, maybe
Yeah.
a physique athlete. Like they're
Sure.
two different,
Absolutely.
you know, like Michael Phelps. I think I read one time when he was training for the Olympics again, like he eats like 10,000 calories a day
right,
because of
right.
his regimen, you know, and there's
Right.
not an ounce of fat on him, you know?
Sure.
So it again, you bring up a really good point. It depends on your goals,
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely.
And as we, you know, speaking from a normal, everyday, healthy person, say mature, as we get into our mature ages.
Okay.
Okay. What a lot of people don't know is every decade we're aging, our metabolisms are starting to slow down.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And we need to understand what we can do, and we have to change our nutrition.
Well, I'm doing that right now.
Right.
Because I can feel my metabolism is slowing down finally, you know, but I still have that one issue. And one thing that I learned is that fitness is not necessarily healthy.
Correct.
Okay. You can be physically fit and not be completely healthy. And you can be healthy on the inside, but not look it on the outside. You know, when I was in my early 50s, we had a gym, a fitness center in a building that the company I worked for. And I've always been an athlete. I've always been in shape. I've always pretty much been this size, right? 180 pounds, right? You know, in that area. So, but I made it a point to go to the gym every single day, and I worked out. And listen, I was in the best physical condition that I'd ever been in my life, right? I mean, I had a six pack. I was like, you know, I mean, I looked like I can't even imagine the best athlete you could possibly think of, right? And I was like 53 years old, and people couldn't believe it. Man, you look great. But the problem was at that point, okay, when I was at that point where physically I looked and felt better than I ever did in my life, I couldn't run a mile full out, right? Couldn't do it to save my life. If there was a tiger chasing me, I wouldn't make it a mile because I couldn't do it. But you'd never believe that. Right. By looking at me at that time.
Right.
You know, so just because somebody looks lean and fit doesn't mean that they're healthy. On the inside.
No, it doesn't. I mean, could go into a lot of things here, but my experience, especially myself as a woman, you know, I had a lot of disordered eating.
Sure.
I had this mindset of I had to exercise for hours. I just did a clip on this yesterday. I have to exercise for hours and hours and hours and hours so that I could lose that weight and eat less, eat less, eat less.
Yeah.
Well, you're actually working against your physiology when you do that.
Right.
Your body needs nutrients. It needs fuel to support that energy output, you know?
Right.
And you're working against yourself when you do that because you're elevating the stress hormone, cortisol. Your body's going into flight or fight mode. So your body's going to start to either not feel well, you're not going to be able to perform the way you want to perform, or you're going to actually start to gain weight.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what happens to a lot of women. They have this mindset that I need to go to the gym every single day for hours.
Sure.
And you don't. And especially as women age, that is the worst thing that you could do.
Sure.
You know? But yeah, to your point, I mean, there's this term we call skinny. I hate to use the word fat, but it's just in the industry. You know, you can look healthy.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
To your point, your metabolic health isn't.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's very true. And you know, it comes down to, again, men and women are different. Right?
Absolutely.
Our physiology is different.
Sure.
You know, my dad always used to make fun of me because I said that to him one day when I was going through my divorce and everything. And he said, I really thought you'd figure that out sooner than now at 40, you know. But, and he told my mother, hey, he finally got it. But, you know, but we're structured differently, you know,
Absolutely.
and our bodies develop differently.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the same weight loss journey, the same fitness journey for a man and a woman, starting in the same place, going the same way, it's completely different. Night and day.
Different. Completely different. Hormones, muscle mass, like completely different.
Right.
And it's frustrating for us.
Oh, sure.
You guys can, like, your weight comes off a lot faster, but it's because of the physiological differences.
Exactly.
You know, and
exactly.
And the metabolic differences. And if it was that simple, calories in, calories out, like the law of thermodynamics is the foundation, right?
Yeah.
But it's not that simple.
Right. Right.
Because the calorie isn't a calorie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you eat 3 ounces of chicken versus a Snickers bar, your body's going to process that completely different.
Right.
You know, because protein is the highest, what I call thermoeffective food.
Okay.
It's going to give you the longer satiation, which is satisfaction, less hunger between meals. You know, it's going to rev your metabolism up. It's feeding every single cell in your body because of the amino acids, you know, whereas you eat a Snickers, your insulin's going to spike, which is your blood sugar.
Sure.
And you're going to crash, and your body's going to crave more of that.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So a calorie is not a calorie.
I get it. Yeah, sure.
You know?
It makes sense.
And it is common sense, but you can't eat 1,200 calories a day and 800 of that be a piece of chocolate cake.
Right.
It's not.
That's counterproductive.
It's counterproductive.
Yeah.
You know, and I just have the philosophy of there's no reason to weigh and measure and do all this crazy stuff. There's a much simplistic way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to your point when you said earlier, you know, mindful, portion control,
Right.
you know, common sense with what you're choosing
Mm-hmm.
to eat, you know, and this is what we use right here. Like
Yeah.
palm, 1 palm for women, 2 palm for men. You know, this is your complex carb, you know, vegetables,
Yeah.
this is your fat. You know,
Yeah.
you can take this everywhere to measure.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
you don't need all this, you know, and honestly, I mean, we make it so complicated.
Right. No, it's who we
And
are.
the diet industry, the diet culture makes it so complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. And it doesn't have to be. Stop the insanity.
Well, and then,
You know?
we could get into
Oh.
a conversation about, how that industry, they're selling a product. They're not looking out for your health. When you see those diet ads for diets on TV, they're trying to sell you that product. They're not trying to make you healthy.
Mm-mm.
Right? They're trying to make money. It's like big pharma. You could go into all of those things.
Oh, yeah, don't even get me started.
They're not going to cure you because every person they cure, they lose a customer. Right? So they would be out of business if they made us all healthy.
Right.
So they're not going to do that.
Right.
That it's medicine today is not really over-the-counter medicines are not geared to help us be healthy. Mm-mm. They want to prolong. And so we can keep coming back. They want repeat customers.
Well, if we cured obesity, then
we'd kill half of our economy.
Right.
I'm serious.
Well, yeah,
I'm being serious.
Because chronic disease starts with inflammation.
Right.
And metabolic syndrome, which is having more than one chronic disease at a time. Again, I have to keep saying this. I'm not a doctor, but I'm educated enough to know enough.
You
right?
play one on a podcast.
Right. If we cured that.
Sure. You're right. You're absolutely right.
All these pills that just came out for type 2 diabetes and wouldn't be in existence, right?
Yeah.
But again, that's another whole big
It is
conversation, and I won't get off on a tangent.
Where we at, Nick?
Oh, wow.
See? How cool is that?
Yeah, we better wrap this up.
He's probably got someplace to go. He's important.
Right.
Look at him. You want to clack again? Okay. So we've, according to Nick, we've gone over the allotted
Are you
time
going to double
limit.
the charge now?
Yeah. So he's look, he's antsy. He looks like I think he's got someplace to go. Someplace probably more important people than us.
More important than these two, mature folks
old people.
sitting here, old people, right?
People. So listen, thank you. This has been exactly what I hoped it would be, and thank you for coming on and talking to us and sharing your story and your insights. I'm healthier just listening to you, and I'm not saying that because it's if you're conscious about, if you're intentional more than conscious, if you're intentional about living and what you're doing, okay,
absolutely.
how you're what you're putting in your body, where you're putting yourself, and what the thoughts that you're thinking. That intentionality, it doesn't take any more time or effort to do that than to just go out and free for all. Yeah. But being intentional about your health, about your thoughts, about just life in general, your daily life in general, is just it's amazing what it can do to improve and make everything about you and around you better.
Yep, you're absolutely right, and you just said the magic word there. Be intentional.
Exactly.
Because when we are intentional, things will just come. You know what I mean? And 90% of the journey is the 6 inches between the ears.
Absolutely right.
And I tell I tell everybody that. You want something? It's up here first.
Yep.
Well,
thank you so much, my friend.
You're welcome.
We appreciate
it. It was fun, and I'm excited.
There you go.
Thank you for having me.
And enjoy the rest of the day and your weekend and the holiday season.
I'm off the rest of the day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm just going to go enjoy my day.
Perfect. All right, Nick, thank you so much, my man, as always.
Thank you. You're welcome.